My name is Jordan Travis Radke, and I am the director of the Collaborative for Community Engagement, as well as the sociologist with a background in teaching and research. This year, our office will be supporting community engagement primarily through connecting students to virtual community projects. And we put together this video to both share with you a little bit more context about why we are prioritizing that particular type of work, as well as some best practices and tips for how to put together really strong project ideas for student work. I'd like to start with sharing a little bit more with you about the general context and how CC is responding to the COVID crisis. So first, students will be returning in a phased-in approach. Our first-year students will be welcomed to campus at the very beginning of the semester, and then about a month later, for Block 2, sophomores through seniors will be returning to campus. The college is implementing an extended academic calendar to allow students to continue to have a full load and be full-time students even if they get started a bit later in the year. So we are adding in a kind of January term option that will be in January. That's an additional course. And then both of our summer block options will be considered a part of the academic year. I share that to let you know that some students may be returning to our campus later this fall, but then continue to take courses through the summer, which generates unique kind of limitations as well as possibilities for working with students this year. Our approach to courses this fall will be a hybrid approach, which will mix virtual and in-person classes. So some classes will be taught exclusively in person with social distancing and safety protocols. That's a relatively small portion of our courses. I believe around 7% of classes will be in person. And the rest will either be courses in which a few elements are in person and many elements are virtual, where there are options to come in person, but even during those spaces, there would be virtual opportunities to join so that if students weren't comfortable, they would not be forced to come to an in-person element of the course. And then finally, there will be some courses that are taught entirely virtual. I share that to let you know that while our campus is reopening, it is certainly not business as usual. And many students will primarily still be interacting with others through a screen during fall. And in general, I would say Colorado College is responding pretty conservatively to this environment and trying to prioritize safety above all else. We also want to let you know that Colorado College is in the midst of a leadership transition. Right now we have interim co-presidents, which are our Dean of Students and Vice President of Finance, who will be carrying Colorado College forward until we hire an incoming president. So share that with you just so you know there is a bit kind of up in the air right now with Colorado College, and so long-term planning is will be starting more fruitfully whenever we have a new president come in. And then lastly, I'll share that we, in keeping with the priorities of our college leadership, are prioritizing safety above all else in efforts to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, and because of that, we'll be strongly encouraging students to engage in community work primarily through virtual remote means. Now that you know a little bit more about the context at Colorado College in general, we'd like to share with you a little bit more about what our conversations have looked like and how the CCE in particular will be setting up a structure to support community engagement during this next time period. We will be organizing students including but not limited to our paid community engaged fellows, into issue-based coalitions. For example, we'll have a coalition around environment and ecology. We'll have a coalition on K-12 education. We'll have a coalition focused on health. We are hiring student organizers to lead those coalitions and are in that process currently. And are hoping to support partners by asking organizations to share their project-based needs with those coalitions, and then organizing students into small groups who can tackle those projects together. The reason that we are looking to support virtual collaborative projects are a couple of different things. So first, we feel that projects are better suited for a remote work context than many other types of work that are really better suited for in-person work in an office or with direct programming with the populations that you work with. Our hope is that collaborative shared work will minimize isolation, which I'm sure, as many of you have experienced, is an issue in these days in which we are all separated from one another. We hope that there will be better accountability and tracking of student work if students are responsible for particular outcomes rather than just a particular time period in which they should be working. I'll also mention that we feel that our hope is that there will be better accountability in terms of peer accountability, so that students are holding one another accountable for continuing the project and working towards the outcome that is desired. In addition, we hope that this balances flexibility with sustained commitment to an issue. So particularly when students are earlier in their college career and are looking to discern their passions as well as their strengths, it can be helpful for them to be able to work on a couple of different things and figure out where they really are best suited to contribute. But because they are committing to the issue-based coalition, they are still asked to put at the forefront the sustainability needed to affect change. We also hope that this flexibility is helpful for community partners in that you can request work as needed and as helpful, and sometimes those contributions that you are looking for really necessitate a full year, and sometimes we recognize that there may be projects and needs that you have that are really more short term. So our hope is that that flexibility can support both students as well as partners. And then finally, we are hoping to provide better on-ramps to find a good fit between students and partners. This goes back to the flexibility piece of being able to work with students on a particular project for you to find out if they are a good fit for your organization and what you're looking for in collaborating with a student, and vice versa. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Peak Inquiry Project, which is a project that we started this past year and is the primary platform through which we will be accepting project proposals. So Peak Inquiry is a platform through which community organizations and city departments can submit knowledge and research-based project ideas to share with CC students, faculty, volunteer teams, and courses. I'll be talking a little bit later in this video about what we mean by project and what the main types of projects are that we are looking to support here. But really it is a platform. So it's a Google form that you can fill out some information, share some ideas. We can respond to those ideas, and if they're a good fit for our campus community, can both post them on our website and also do outreach to students and to faculty to complete those projects. For this year, we are primarily using those issue-based coalitions as the kind of pool of interested students to conduct those projects. So we are simultaneously working to build up project ideas, as well as the group of interested campus change makers who can take on those projects. Our primary intent with starting this platform was to bring the knowledge of the campus to bear on public real-world issues. We want to make knowledge publicly engaged, actionable knowledge connected to the Pikes Peak community, hence the acronym. And the way that we are doing that is through helping to connect campus change makers to community inquiries, your questions, your challenges, and your problems. I'd like to talk a little bit about what makes a project, so you know what types of things we are looking for organizations to submit through this platform. And there are a couple of kind of core elements that we're looking for. So first, these are bounded. They have a beginning, an end, and an outcome, rather than the ongoing, sustained contributions that your organization would need from your own staff in an ongoing way. These are outcome-based types of initiatives, so there's some kind of product that you're looking for in the end that is specified. It could be a website, that could be a manual, it could be a curriculum, it could be a map, it could be a resource sheet, it could be a research paper. I'll go through and share with you a little bit more about the types of things that these can be, but in general, they have some kind of outcome that you're looking for. These are capacity building rather than necessary or deficit leaving. And what we mean by that is after the students complete the project and hand over the outcome, that is something that has built your power and ability to fulfill your mission, even if students then go on to doing other kinds of pursuits and projects. So often with volunteering, if a student leaves at the end, it is deficit leaving, meaning it gives it leaves a gap in the operations of your organization. With these kind of projects, our hope is that the outcome builds your capacity rather than leaves a deficit when students are completed with that work. And then lastly, we're really looking for projects that are skill and knowledge based. So the hope here is that students can see the connections and faculty can see the connections with the types of things that they are learning about in the classroom and becoming educated on, and the types of things that you are looking for. I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like later in this video. I want to share with you a couple of real examples so you can envision a little more concretely what types of real projects have happened in the past couple of years supported by our office. One example is that a team of sociology students conduct a program evaluation of a local organization's safe sex curriculum. So in this project, they look at a pre-test and post-test of what students have learned through going through a curriculum that organization offers. We worked with a history student who explored archival data for an organization to better understand their history. So, going through all of the documents and resources that organizations accumulate over time and yet don't have the power or ability to, or the time or capacity to look through all of those resources to better understand where they came from and what their foundations are. An economics student drafted an organization's annual report and had made recommendations for a template to use in future years of how to draft those annual reports. So communication strategies are certainly an excellent type of project to think through working with students in. And then finally, a film student who created an educational film for an organization. This is something that might or might not be difficult during COVID times. It depends on what kind of footage you already have, what types of footage you would be needing. But again, thinking through how to engage the skills and support of students in communication efforts. We recommend framing your project as an inquiry or a question. And the reason that we recommend that is that framing a conceptual, interesting question can help students connect your project with their larger academic and personal interests and their classroom experiences and majors. In general, the more that you can find an intersection between what benefits your organization and what connects with students and faculty are already doing in outside of the classroom, the better the chances of getting your project matched. IDEO is a design thinking firm, and they provide some advice on how to frame a good challenge question for an organization. And we recommend starting with thinking about those challenge questions, which they define as problems to solve on your way to embodying your organization's vision. To frame a directive and inspirational challenges, they recommend trying to write a question that has the following elements. First, it is inspirational. It gets people excited and it points to the larger vision and goals of your organization. Second is relevant. It's something that students and faculty and your organization can connect to automatically. It's open-ended, so it's something that is not just a yes or no question, or if it is a yes or no question, both the yes and the no are interesting. While it is an open-ended question, it is something that is directive, so specific enough to give direction to the person who is working to respond to that type of question for you and knows what type of information or what type of project it is that they are working on for you. And it is generative, so you can think of multiple solutions immediately. Lastly, the question is answerable or feasible. So posing questions that are so broad and so open-ended and so big that you couldn't actually ever come to a conclusion can be overwhelming to our students and lack direction for our faculty. In thinking about what question captures your project, I recommend thinking about framing it as a how might we question, which also comes from the IDEO design thinking firm. At least that was my exposure to it. And the three elements of this question are that it is solution-oriented, optimistic, and collaborative. To help you brainstorm the needs and possibilities for project-based work within your organization, we've put together a resource sheet that will be available on our website or may be attached to an email if you're receiving this video through an email. The first page of this resource sheet explains a little more in depth how the Peak Inquiry Project works and what the process looks like. We've also included a list of definitions to serve as a foundation for the types of projects that you can think about. We include definitions for what we mean by research, community-engaged research, community-engaged learning, if you're thinking about proposing something that could fit into a classroom, academic capstone or thesis, and a community-engaged capstone. We've also included a 2-page chart that can help you think through what types of capacity building projects are possibilities in working with students. We've organized it so that you can think through what the primary type of capacity is that you would like to build up in your organization, the types of projects that are good possibilities for building that capacity, and then the common outcomes and products. We've also included a list of questions that may be helpful types of framing to brainstorm the kinds of projects and possibilities with collaborating with the college. These are large, open-ended questions just to get the wheels turning and think about what types of projects you could propose. These are organized by question and then thinking about what the kind of conceptual goal is that you would be working on. Finally, we've put together 3 pages of resources that hopefully will be helpful to you in thinking about the types of things that projects could support for your organization. This includes resources for thinking about good project ideas specifically for students, coming up with remote, virtual capacity building projects, connecting to courses, and then resources for thinking about specific types of projects and the outcomes. So this includes topics like social media or communication resources, volunteer recruitment and management, etc. Finally, we'd like to share with you a couple of our best practices and lessons learned in the types of projects that are best suited to our student population. If you are wanting to propose projects, it will go to those issue-based coalitions, which will break into smaller teams of students. So first, try to set realistic time commitments, something that can be started and finished within a few months by 2 or 3 full-time students. Second, try to avoid time-critical work. And this is just to set everyone up for success and avoid frustrations on either side. So our students and our block plan in particular do require flexibility in that there are ebbs and flows in how demanding their course load is, and it can be helpful to set up a project that is beneficial to you but isn't necessarily operating under a strict deadline. Third, propose a topic that's interesting to you, to others in your organization, to students. Aim to set it up as an opportunity to learn for both your organization and students. So in thinking about the right level of difficulty for projects, set it up so that it is feasible for what they know, but also challenging enough to be engaging in an opportunity to learn. Aim to establish goals that are in a project that is developmentally appropriate, so that requires skills and knowledge that students have. If you're unsure on what is developmentally appropriate, our office is more than happy to support you in thinking through the level of college students at various points of their college career. And then lastly, we recommend structured autonomy. So having clear expectations, clear outcomes, a clear time commitment that you are looking for, and good feedback along the way, but projects that also allow for some independence and self-direction and creativity. Thank you so much for taking the time to go through this video with us. I hope that you are able to review the resource document that we put together for you and also find that helpful. And we welcome you to Peak Inquiry and hope that we see some of your project proposals in the near future. If you have any questions that you are still thinking through and aren't quite sure how to proceed next, please feel free to reach out to our general office email at cce@coloradocollege.edu, and those emails will be directed to the appropriate staff person in our office.